Okay, hello, Asian youngsters. Meet with us in Talking ASEAN Podcast. This is our first episode, so it's gonna be really interesting because today we are going to discuss about the origin and future of the regional order in the Indo-Pacific. And to be sure with you all, guys, Asian youngsters, this podcast it aims to bring ASEAN closer to the youth. So all of you will know about what happened in our region, how dynamic our region, and know for exactly what we should do as a part of this region. And for today topics, we are going to bridge perspective between the youth in as foreign policy professionals and experts on the Indo-Pacific. So you guys will know what is Indo-Pacific. Recently, we hear a lot of term using Indo-Pacific in a newspaper, in the radio, even in YouTube, in other podcasts, Indo-Pacific. Something might be really interesting about this. We are going to now on our discussion and discuss existing geopolitical tension in the Indo-Pacific and the ramification for ASEAN. So, as you know, this region, a lot of external actors come into this region, US, China, Japan, and now even India go to this region. This region become extremely important for many people. And us, as a youth in ASEAN, supposed to know how important is this region for them and for us as well. And the last is to explore various Indo-Pacific strategies and analyze their similarities, difference, and relevance for ASEAN. When you know what make us similar with the others and what the different, identify it, then we more know what we should do and what our interests going to do with this. And also enhance understanding of the Indo-Pacific construct and its future. So Indo-Pacific will be a term that you will hear, I think, more in the future. And by understanding this Indo-Pacific term, it will help you to understand this region even better. And today, I'm not alone. I have our special guest for today. So our special guest for today is Dr. Teuku Rezasyah, MA Ph.D, Associate Professor in International Relations. Hello, Pak Teuku. How I can address you? Pak Teuku, Pak Reza?
You can call me Reza or Teuku or Teuku Rezasyah. It's up to you.
Okay, but let me to call you Pak Reza, okay?
Yes, please.
Okay, because my name is Rangga and Reza.
R&R.
Yeah. Before I start, I will introduce not only Pak Teuku, but Pak Reza, but also me. My name is Rangga Aditya, and I will be your host for today. And for our speakers today, Pak Reza obtained his undergraduate degree from International Relations, Padjadjaran University, one of top tier university in Indonesia for international relations, and continued his master in Victoria University of Wellington in New Zealand, and also obtained his PhD from College of Law, Government and International Study at Northern Malaysia University. Wow, it's such various kind of knowledge there.
Citizen of the world.
That's the term. Remember, Asian youngster, we are part of this world and we are the citizens of the world, or we can say a global citizenship. And I've continued that Pak Rezasyah, previously a chair at the Department of International Relations at Padjadjaran University, am I right? It's in 2000. And later also assigned in the President University in Cikarang also as a chairperson for the Department of International Relations, and also become the Dean, the Faculty of Humanities. So this might be a really various knowledge there in humanities, right? Pak Rezasyah also have a postdoctoral study at the University of Delaware in USA under Fulbright scholarships, a diplomatic training at Ministry of Foreign Affairs of the Republic of China under the ASEAN-China Scholarship, and a special course at Ministry of Foreign Affairs. It's quite a lot of experience there. May I know what you do recently?
Well, I write a lot, yeah. I comment a lot. I make friends. And then they encourage me to come to their countries, and I'm happy to do it. And then, of course, as a citizen of Indonesia, I need to bring the good name of Indonesia. So when there is an invitation for conference, invitation for short courses, I think I encourage myself to be part of a good team. Yeah.
I see. May I know the last country that you visited?
Vietnam.
Wow.
I was there 24 hours ago.
24 hours.
Yes.
So this is just landing and
Just landing. Yeah.
special come to our podcast today.
Correct.
Guys, you are so lucky, Asian youngsters. So as you know, Pak Reza already traveled a lot to many countries in ASEAN. Also talking a lot about ASEAN, East Asia as well as Indo-Pacific become a recent debate and discussion over the scholars in the region. Pak Reza, correct me if I'm wrong.
No,
correct me if I'm wrong. And I do believe that our Asian youngster also want to know about the term of Indo-Pacific.
Correct.
If I'm not wrong, Indo-Pacific came from the geopolitician from German Karl Haushofer, right? Am I right? When he mentioned this in 1920s. But recently, I think after like almost 83 years up until now, that we heard about this again, Indo-Pacific. So could you share with us the history of Indo-Pacific concept and its development in recent years?
Well, the term Indo-Pacific usually it was known as a linguistic. It was considered part of the linguistic term, yeah. And then later on, it became it had a defense and security connotation, yeah.
Okay.
But if we refer the might of the U.S. Marine, yeah, the might of the U.S. Navy soon after the Second World War, they begin to see the world from various kind of spots, yeah. Let's say Indian Ocean, and then they see also the Pacific Ocean. We see the spread of the U.S. naval fleets. Naval fleets are usually surrounding the Indian Ocean and the Pacific Ocean.
Yeah.
And then if we refer back to the year of 1980s, we began to see APEC, Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation. Then we began to see problems there. Okay, economic cooperations, no security orientation. Taiwan was there, China was there. And then later on, considering the rise of China here, and also considering the rise also as India as the competitors. And so there was a need, well, the term Indo-Pacific itself has different kind of interpretation. Some countries say okay, some countries propose, some countries say no. For example, China is not supportive to the term Indo-Pacific.
Obvious, because it came from US.
Yes.
Okay.
Because it put a higher importance of India. Because the term Indo there is India there. Yeah? But anyway, countries begin to acknowledge, okay, there is a term Indo-Pacific. But at the same time, countries are a bit worried. Well, anyhow, Indo-Pacific, it covers Southeast Asia, ASEAN countries. We have 11 countries. Yeah. And then also we witness South Asian countries there. In this case, when we try to link Indian Ocean and then Pacific Ocean and its land masses, oh my God, it involves heaps of countries there. ASEAN, we have 11. And then we have India, countries in Southeast Asia, South Asia. They have a regional institution called SARC, South Asian Association for Regional Cooperation. India is there, Pakistan is there, Bangladesh, Nepal, and then Sri Lanka is there, Bhutan is there. And then there are also countries in East Asian region, the giants, yeah, the emerging, what we call the engine of growth. China is there, Taiwan is there. Japan is there, South Korea is there, and North Korea is there, and also countries in the South Pacific region. Let's say the biggest one is Australia, New Zealand, and then the countries under the categories of Melanesia, Polynesia, and Micronesia, they are there. So in this case, about 40 to 41 countries.
So you say that this Indo-Pacific concept covers like a lot of countries. It's a huge geographical covers, right? But I want to know for exactly, because you said that the term is Indo-Pacific also came from US and support by other countries. But how many countries that interest with this Indo-Pacific initiative?
Well, because the idea came from the US, and we know the caliber of the US from diplomatic perspective, economic perspective, cultural perspective. So willingly or not, we began to acknowledge. We began to acknowledge, and because the term is mentioned all the time, so in the past we used to say APEC, Asia Pacific Economic Cooperation. Nowadays, because the big countries and its allies keep talking about Indo-Pacific, and we also find that the term is neutral, and ASEAN find that as long as we do not put ourselves as the tail of the Indo-Pacific, so there's nothing wrong to consider. We have ASEAN own credibility, but considering the openness of ASEAN, we respect also regions around us. So when they call it, when the US and its allies introduce a term called Indo-Pacific, I think that there's nothing wrong of acknowledging this new kind of region or regional association, as long as we do not make ourselves their tail, and we continue to link ourselves with this region in a positive way in terms of trade, investment.
This is interesting. Yes. I want to go deep into your statement about because this brings benefits. But as we know, you already mentioned also that there's a rivalry between China and US in this sense. But by proximity, China is really close with us, right?
Yes.
While US is quite far away. They maybe have US Pacific Command, but however, it's still away by proximity, need time to deploy many things. But I want to go deeper. Why do states choose Indo-Pacific as their strategic environment, as their strategic option to deal with this? Is it only, like you said, there's economic interest, or they would just want to get the so-called secure situation for themselves, or there's anything else that can we dig from this situation?
Well, this comes from ideas, In this era of the 21st century, countries want to fulfill their ideas, because oftenly, for example, in the past, before we had ASEAN in 1967, we had ASA, Association of Southeast Asia, and then it didn't work. Why? Well, because it didn't cover all the powers there, or the countries there. Then we had ASEAN. ASEAN had the credibility. First ASEAN 5, Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, Thailand, Philippines. Then through time we developed ourselves into a more credible organization. Then now we have ASEAN 10. Next, maybe Timor-Leste is coming.
Will be our newest member.
Yes.
ASEAN 11, right?
Yes.
Okay.
And then ASEAN, we made ourselves greater credible. We made ourselves more credible by having ASEAN plus 3. In this case,
dialogue
partners, China, Japan, and South Korea. Then we had also other partners, dialogue partners. And then we begin to have a better relation with them, not only at the economic, but also at the investment level, and then people-to-people level. But at the same time, at the moment, we're beginning to see that the US is reducing its power capacity, isn't it? And China is rising. And to cope with this, I think it is better for the US and its allies to have a new kind of umbrella. And this kind of new umbrella is called the Indo-Pacific. Okay, they call it Indo-Pacific because by having the term Indo, it gives a leverage for India, isn't it? And of course, China doesn't like it because anyhow, China's rise to superpower status has caused many concern from many countries all over the world. Because when we see China, we think ourselves on a sleeping dragon. Can you imagine when dragon is asleep and then all of a sudden the dragon is waking up? You can imagine that its fire, its head, its neck, its huge tails. And even the smallest movement of its body can affect the world. Yeah? So in the past, we used to have a term, the yellow peril for China. And then because China is so threatening, but at the same time, we have to accept the fact that China is there. We cannot contain China. If the US say we can contain China, but we in ASEAN, we cannot contain China. China is too huge here. What we could do is to engage here. In matter of this, and the US find itself reducing, China is increasing, and they find a term. Well, to find a friendlier term, in this case, ASEAN is with the US, yes.
Okay.
And then New Zealand, Australia is with the US. And then they need to have a strategic partner here. Then they invented AUKUS and also AUKUS, Australia, UK, US, and also Quad,
It's Quad states as well.
Yes, Quad states, and India
but
is there.
I'm afraid Asian youngster not familiar with Quad state. Could you say?
It is a Quad stand for quadrilateral, involving Japan, Australia, India
and
also the US. So this is by having the name Indo-Pacific, it gives a leverage for India, isn't it? But we cannot avoid the fact we could say India at the moment is the country with the biggest population. They're competing with China,
The difference only is several thousand, and then sometimes India become number one, the next one China become number one.
Correct. This is the impact of the one kid policy in China about 20 to 30 years ago, isn't it?
Yes.
And then India rising also peacefully. And by having the name Indo-Pacific, it gives India as not only a special status in this huge region, which encompasses around 60% of the world population, isn't it?
60% of the world population. But
then,
anyway, Pak Reza, this is interesting. You just touched upon the geopolitical tension between US and China, right? And then you said that in declining of US power in the region, there's also a backup came from the Quad states and other US allies in the region. But I would like to know, as we know that ASEAN, Southeast Asia, become one of the flashpoints in the sense of security or strategic things. And I would like to know what are the crucial flashpoints in the Indo-Pacific region recently?
The answer is heaps,
Oh, okay.
Firstly, we have the residues of the Second World War.
Residue, it's still there, remain in the region.
Today,
okay.
For example, relations between the North and South Koreas, they are still in a fragile relations.
Really
That's
fragile.
one. And then there are also problems involving Japan and Russia.
Japan and
Russia, for example, just before the end of the Second World War, Russia invaded 4 islands belonged to Japan at that time. Habomai, Sikotan, Iterofu, Kunashiri. So there are disputes there. Until now, Japan and Russia. And then the North and the South Korea. There are also disputes between Japan and Korea regarding small islands. Japan call it Takeshima Island. There are also disputes not only at the level of security, but also the level of the socio-cultural arena. For example, when we refer to the dispute between Japan, China, and Korea, with regard to the unfinished historical story. With regard to the past Japan's colonization in East Asia.
Especially when they visit Yasukuni and many kind of things, right?
Correct. Until now, if we go to the East Asian countries, they are very familiar with a term called Yugun Ianfu.
Yugun Ianfu. In Indonesia,
we also have. We in Indonesia, we hardly touch these ideas in it. It caused social... Oh my God, I don't know what to say, because some of us were treated as the comfort women by the Japanese soldiers.
It's very terrible at the time.
Very traumatic. But in China, Korea, they still talk about this.
It's quite sensitive.
It is
right?
very sensitive.
Well, the case of Yasukuni temple, for instance, right?
Correct.
every time there's a visit there might be a tension between China and Japan as well. So
that's in East Asia.
That's it. In Southeast Asia. There's also
in Southeast Asia we still have issues. For example, let's say unsettled borders, sea borders involving Indonesia and Vietnam, for example. Even though we adhere to the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, but for the Vietnam, they still believe on their own system called Talwek. Yeah? Talwek meaning a connection between the resources developed at the land and its flow to the sea. And then there are also problems with regard to Malaysia and Singapore. They still have problems with regard to they call it causeway.
Okay, causeway.
And also on small islands at the Straits of Philippines, they're still discussing this.
Okay.
And then between Malaysia and Philippines, they're still disputing about the status of Sabah.
Yeah. I think even Indonesia have more than the dispute between Indonesia and surrounding is quite a lot. But
correct.
I think the most important flashpoint, obviously, the South China Sea, right?
Correct.
What do you think will be happen in this South China Sea with this recent development of Indo-Pacific for Southeast Asia at least?
This is very interesting, yeah, because in the past China didn't touch the issue of South China Sea because they were busy with their own internal development. Yeah. For example, until the era of Deng Xiaoping, they tend to talk about economic development and how to integrate different provinces with different characteristics into one China. Okay, but now, following the entrance of China into WTO in year 2000, they're aware that they have reached such a level which was unachieved in the past, especially for the top leader Xi Jinping. He has found himself to have a capacity to put the ideas of Mao Zedong and Deng Xiaoping in himself. So he wanted to achieve something which China had not achieved in the past. So in this case, there is a term here, flexing the muscle, isn't it? Once you are growing economically, where will you channel your energies, isn't it? For China, it began to reopen its past documents. Among others, when it comes to security, they tried to reclaim part of the South China Sea. Well, it was not Chinese ideas; it was the Taiwanese ideas sometime in year 1947 in the past.
Before 49.
Before 49.
Because they have their resettlement then.
Correct. And now they begin to try to make sure that they have a leverage in this part of in the South China Sea, and they introduce an idea called 9-dash line. This 9-dash line is unknown in the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, and they are making their own international law.
It's not recognized by UN. Correct. What you want to say, right?
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. And now, of course, it has caused confusion in the eyes of the ASEAN countries, because for some countries inside ASEAN, let's say Malaysia, Philippines, Vietnam, and Brunei Darussalam, they had interest in the South China Sea, in certain atolls. Yeah? Taiwan also has the same interest. But for China, not only it has its own interest, but China also claim that they have a capacity to control part of the South China Sea. About 70% of South China Sea under Chinese attention, under the they call it unstoppable 9-dash line. And from day to day, from 9 it has gone to 10-dash line. And we do not know next year when Timor-Leste will be becoming part of ASEAN, they will make it 11-dash line. Well, this is the situation. It has put difficulties for ASEAN countries because China has been harassing ASEAN countries' development at the sea. For example, when they give concession to the advanced economies to work with us to drill minerals there. And China, considering its remote sensing capacities, China has a better understanding now what is happening, not only at the sea, but underneath the sea. At the bottom of the sea, they can see it using their remote sensors. Yeah.
And there's a lot of resources below there.
Yes, even though the resources are confidential, yeah, but that's one issue. The other issue is the freedom of navigation. Yeah. We countries in South ASEAN would like to see a freedom of movement, movement of trade vessels, and then for the US, they would like to have a free movement of their naval vessels. Yeah.
Using this line, I mean, this sea line, how many percentage of the world trade that come across this line?
Oh my God,
A lot.
60 to 65% of the global
Can
trade.
you imagine, Asian youngster, 65% of this world trade came over our region. So this is a really, really important flashpoint. And those who can't control this will become the one that have a control over this trade line, right?
Correct. Moreover, for countries like China, Japan, South Korea, this South China Sea is their bloodline because their export, import are coming through this sea, especially their sources of energy coming from the Middle East, coming from Southeast Asia, going to Japan, to China, to South Korea, will have to pass the sea, and also for the US. Yeah, in order to control the world, they need to master this South China Sea, and not to mention also capacity to deal with the choke points in Southeast Asia.
Yeah.
So that's why for the US, if China claim control of the sea, it will endanger the global operation of the US
global
Navy.
supply chain by this
Correct.
mean. Because in order to get a supply from the trade, it's not only you have to secure the supply, I mean the one that produced this, but also have to secure the line to distribute this, right?
Correct, 24 hours.
And this is 65% of the line of distribution of global supply chains happen in our region.
Correct.
I see. So in that sense, you want to say to Asian youngster that this is important because when somebody have a full control of this, so the state can put a sanction on anything that could make somebody not get their any logistic or else, right?
To disrupt, yeah.
I see. So this is really, really important, and China, you already mentioned, make a lot of development in the region, although the 9 dash line, it's just an imaginary line, but the development is real there. But Pak Reza, I would like to know, well, you already mentioned that this is a sleeping dragon, right?
Oh yes.
And a dragon is still dragon. It will be still dangerous when wake up. And I think now they start to wake up, maybe. And U.S.-China rivalry, I think it's already happened since many years ago, right?
Correct.
But now they have Indo-Pacific. So in that sense, from your observation, what do you see might be similar or different when US engage by themselves with China and US now with the bring the Indo-Pacific, and how this Indo-Pacific kind of things will bring ASEAN into their rivalry?
Yes, this is what worries ASEAN. Yeah.
So we are worried. I mean, our elite is worried about this.
Yes. We in ASEAN are worried that the US will bring this Indo-Pacific into a defense association in disguise. Yeah, because when countries are economically closer and they find the needs to interact, and this is an ingredient for defense relations.
Okay.
Even though defense relation is already there involving the US and some of the ASEAN partner countries, yeah. But for ASEAN as a whole, we try to make ourselves a non-military organization.
Yeah.
But with regards to the global dispute involving the US and China, well, not only they try to engage all countries in this part of the world, in the Southeast Asia, South Asia, and then East Asia, but also the Pacific, into their camp here. In this case, the US is more obvious. it has so many defense arrangements. Let's say with countries in the South Pacific, they have Australia, New Zealand, United States, and then the US also has AUKUS, and then the US also has Quad, and the US also had defense bilateral relations with the Philippines, with Vietnam, with Singapore, with Malaysia. But for China always say that my rise to superpower status is done through peace. Yeah. But at the same time, China has strategic relations with all countries in the Indo-Pacific region. It is under the name, let's say, comprehensive partnership, comprehensive strategic partnership, or strategic comprehensive partnership. There are so many. Yeah. But in this case, the two powers need to manage the rivalries. Yeah. Because anyhow, there are good things of seeing rivalries between the two giants. Yeah. Because in the past, there was rivalry between the US against the Soviet Union. Yeah. They had nuclear, but they were aware that to use nuclear is against their interests. The theory says mutually assured destruction. So I think until now, even though the US has nuclear, China has nuclear, but they will not use it for to justify their leadership. Yeah. In this case, what's happening is that there is competition, there is cooperation, but there is also co-opetition, something in between, linking cooperation and competition. So this is the situation happening. But anyhow, the rise of China has caused confusion in the US because the US and also its allies, we are unsure where will China go after this, isn't it? Because usually once we have a good military power, a good economic power, countries will tend to flex its muscles, isn't it? And we do not know what kind of muscle China would like to show.
Oh, well, underline muscle and underline the competition itself by themselves. But I think before in the Pacific, we heard another initiative that came from China.
Yes.
At that time, they came with One Belt, One Route. Then they changed it into Belt and Road Initiative. So in this situation, now we find that there is two big initiatives in the region, right? The BRI as well as the Indo-Pacific. And from your observation, the competition between BRI and Indo-Pacific, can we say this is a competition of initiative together or to engage with all of the actors in the region, or this is totally a different kind of things that maybe BRI run through the infrastructure and economic, while Indo-Pacific more strategic, or what can we say about those two initiatives?
When it comes to ideas, I find that China is more advanced.
More advanced?
Yes.
China more advanced?
Because they had the experience in the past, isn't it? The Silk Road, yeah. So they want to rekindle the Silk Road at the land level and also at the sea level. For example, when it comes to the land level, they try also to link this with their own bank. It is called Asian
Infrastructure and Investment Bank.
Yes.
That one,
yes.
right?
It's under China, isn't it?
Yeah.
So they provide fundings, they provide technicalities, they provide the management, they provide the technology.
It's smart, yeah. Not only the line, but also the money, the technology. It's like the whole package served for us.
Yes. And this Belt and Road Initiative links also the supply chain, isn't it? If we see the roadmap of this supply chain, it goes not only to Southeast Asia, but also to South Asia and also to Europe. It's amazing, isn't it?
Wow.
The link. Even at the moment, in order to support this, they have established a railroad connecting China to Cambodia. You can imagine railroad. You can imagine the speed of this economic transaction could emanate. Yeah.
Oh, it's a railroad because they want to transport something from the landlocked area into the sea, right?
Oh, it's amazing, isn't it?
Wow.
Earlier on, we think that when it comes to landlocked countries, stop there, isn't it?
Yeah.
Like
it's quite difficult. Then they try to link it.
Yes.
Interesting.
And if we research the history, that's also how the US developed, isn't it? In the past, they connect the main cities and then the cities at the coast road at the coastal to the midland of the America, isn't it? Through railroad, isn't it?
Okay.
And once we have a railroad, cities will develop somewhere in between.
What about you mentioned railroad? I'm just curious. What about the rail? The high-speed rail from Jakarta to Bandung. It's part of the BRI itself. I think Asian youngster also already try. Some of them already try it.
It is.
30 minutes. It is.
It is.
Wow.
Even though people in Bandung, in Jakarta, are still questioning, isn't it? do we really need this kind of railroad, isn't it?
It's 30 minutes from Jakarta to Bandung, but it's not in the middle of the city of Bandung, right?
Yes, but correct. You're right. But later on, it will link to
Surabaya. Yeah.
Surabaya, I don't know where it go to Madura or Bali. We do not know yet. Depends on the capacity of China to link. Our railroad in Indonesia with also another railroad somewhere in other part of Southeast Asia. But China is full of imagination.
Yeah. I mean the fact. We know there's a lot of loan, grant for us for infrastructure and development, right? But what China did when they try to provide everything, I do agree with you when you say China more advanced in this kind of thing. But I also believe that Asian youngsters also want to know. With these two big initiatives in the region, okay, and we both know that China and US, they are really strong both in security as well as in economic. But is ASEAN really an effective player in the Indo-Pacific itself with this rivalry, with this big initiative?
Yes, ASEAN has proven itself as the most successful regional organization. Our competitor.
Wait, I want to stop there.
Yeah.
Why you say it's most successful?
We have members from five. Indonesia, Malaysia, Singapore, Thailand, Philippines.
67, right?
Then come six, Brunei Darussalam.
Yeah.
Then come Vietnam. Yeah, and then come Laos and Cambodia. Laos, Myanmar, at the end Cambodia. We tend to grow up. And then we are waiting to see the arrival of Timor-Leste. While in the European Union, we have been experiencing Brexit, isn't it?
Yeah,
one is going out. Even the founder is not there any longer. But we in ASEAN, we are happy to see that if we recall, since 1975, there is no war in Southeast Asia. So this ASEAN, which has been promoting peace, prosperity and progress, 3 P's peace, prosperity, progress, we have successfully developed a compact region with sufficient foundation. Let's say we used to have a Bangkok Declaration. Now we have a Treaty of Amity and Cooperation. We also have the ASEAN Charter, which promote greater collaboration between us, greater coordination, not only when we talk about economic relation. No, we have made ourselves as an ASEAN community, relying on 3 pillars: ASEAN Political Security Community, ASEAN Economic Community, and ASEAN Socio-Cultural Community. If we see the blueprint, it's quite huge, thick, where countries are supposed to walk along the prescribed menus of ASEAN. So by working together at the 3 layers at the same time, we have made ourselves eager to cooperate. Even though, of course, there are internal competition inside ASEAN. But anyhow...
Very common. But we are eager to cooperate. And correct me if I'm wrong. You mentioned that the Treaty of Amity and Cooperation, right? And all of ASEAN partners supposed to agree upon this agreement, right?
Yes.
They have to sign as well.
They have to sign because in order to become a good partner of ASEAN, they need to sign. And
so there is no place for amity in ASEAN, only amity and cooperation, right?
Correct. By doing this, we have produced security bonuses.
For example, what do you mean?
So if you go to countries in East Asia, do they have such organization like ASEAN? They don't. We have Association of Southeast Asian Nations. Over there, they do not have something called Association of Northeast Asian Nations.
Northeast Asian. Yeah, they don't
have it.
CKZ or China, Korea, Japan. It's really hard.
They don't have it.
I cannot imagine they have this kind of regional order.
And because they don't have an order for themselves, so they have benefit from the ASEAN bonuses. Like, for example, ASEAN has become the foundation for, let's say, ASEAN Europe meeting, ASEAN East Asian Summit, and then ASEAN Summit. If we talk about ASEAN Summit, for example, we organize it on an annual basis. On that day, top leaders in Europe, in East Asia, in America, in Australia, New Zealand, they have adjusted their routine to come to ASEAN countries.
I see.
So this is the beauty of having ASEAN. And then once they come here, they can organize meetings with specific ASEAN country. So they can talk about their bilateral relations in ASEAN. So this is something we have to acknowledge. We have contributed a lot.
Okay. So you mentioned that in the sense that ASEAN, they can force, quote unquote, their dialogue partner to sign the TAC, so they will, let's say, behave in the region.
Yes, correct.
While in the same time also have a strategic position, as well as they have the sea line that are really important for the global supply chains. But recently, I also I think many of us and Asian youngsters as well read from the newspaper that ASEAN have what they call ASEAN Outlook on Indo-Pacific, right?
Yes.
It means that if previously you mentioned, because US already mentioned it again and again and again, so people now run with this Indo-Pacific, then ASEAN do the same thing as well, right? By have this ASEAN Outlook on Indo-Pacific. I would like to know how this ASEAN Outlook on Indo-Pacific can be happen. I mean, you previously never mentioned that Indo-Pacific came from ASEAN. You said from the Quad states, the US in this sense, Japan. But how ASEAN then come up with the ASEAN Outlook on the Indo-Pacific?
Correct. When ideas coming from the US, China will dislike. When ideas coming from, let's say, Korea, Japan will dislike. I think ASEAN is the most neutral partner to propose ideas, isn't it? And for ASEAN, okay, we organize an outlook, but the keyword is ASEAN centrality, isn't it? That ideas must be developed by ASEAN, and then ASEAN will have the what we call the first option, or the we call it in politics primus inter pares,
Primus inter pares,
We are all equal, but when it comes to ideas, ASEAN is the primus inter pares, first among equal, And then we understand that when it comes to Indo-Pacific, the countries, tensions are there, disputes are there, and then unsolved crises are there, and also future tension are there. So in this ASEAN Outlook and Indo-Pacific, we promote ideas, for example, the ideas involving sustainable development goals. That's the one. Other ideas are maritime cooperation, and then connectivity, and then economic cooperation, and other possible areas of cooperation. So we are dealing with 4 key issues: maritime cooperation, connectivity, sustainable development goals, and then economic cooperations and other possible areas of cooperation. I think what we are doing is non-security, but will make our region economically inclined. Isn't it? And then promote cooperation in the areas of trade, investment, people-to-people cooperation. At the same time, they realize, do we have to end this kind of cooperation with direct conflict between us, isn't it? So in this case, ASEAN, we think in two ways here. Theoretically, in IR, we try to combine realism. We cannot avoid realism is there, but liberalism is to be proposed, and also globalism. Because in this kind of cooperation, we will involve our transnational actors, multinational corporations. And then in this case, we will see about, there is a dynamics, yeah. Let's say ASEAN, we have about close to 700 million people. And then China with 1.4, and India with 1.4, the US with 350 million, and then countries like Australia with less than 40 million population, New Zealand with less than 10 million population. They will interact, they will synergize. I think this Indo-Pacific and with ASEAN is at the core, yeah, where we could work more positively to the world by producing confidence-building measure and also preventive diplomacy at the same time.
Okay, so it will give a confidence-building measure which people will see more confidence when dealing with us and feel secure when dealing with us, right?
Yes.
But you mentioned that the population of ASEAN as well, population of in China, that's quite huge, and population is one of important point for power of a state, right?
Yes.
But I would like to know, how do you assess Indonesia approach to implementing this ASEAN outlook on the Indo-Pacific? Consider that we are on our period of chairmanship, and also 40%, correct me if I'm wrong, Pak Rezasyah, 40% of ASEAN population and market is in Indonesia. So we are the biggest country in the region. So how do you assess our approach in implementing this?
Well, I think firstly we need to acknowledge the fact you were correct when you mentioned 40% of ASEAN population are here, and then around 40% of ASEAN economies are here. Correct. Meaning Indonesia is the core of ASEAN, isn't it?
Supposed to. In this data, right?
Yes. Data speaks for itself, isn't it? Well, the theory says foreign policy begins at home, isn't it? If Indonesia is all right, ASEAN will be all right. Indo-Pacific will be all right. So that's why when it comes to our role, I think we have works to do, isn't it? Because we need to be confident how we would like to see ourselves in this region. Do we call ourselves a peacemaker, a bridge builder, or a capable middle power country? Because Indonesia is, earlier on we had talked that Indonesia is too big to become someone else's tail, yeah. Well, in this case, I think firstly we need to develop, yes. We need to ensure that we have a capability to become a credible middle power, yes. But in order to become a credible middle power, we need also to have a good government, yeah. Not only a strong government, but a government with vision. The government which can bring Indonesia at a higher level in the global network of competition and rivalries. Yeah. In this case, Indonesia, we need to have a peaceful transition from the current regime to the next regime. Yeah. And in this case, any government inside Indonesia, I do not want to mention the names of the candidates or their number.
Well, it's not law for us to mention.
Yes, number one or number two, number three. But regardless of who they are, they need to be aware that in order to raise the qualities of Indonesia, we need to think, we need to highlight the best practices are there. The best practices are there, for example, what made Japan run this fast? What made China and also South Korea achieve this magnificent level in their growth? Yeah? I think regardless of who the leader of Indonesia, we need to highlight several items. For example, the first one is education of the people. The number 2 is the science and technology to be mastered by the people. And then number 3 is the capacity of the nation to trade internationally, so that in the process we can utilize the comparative advantage and competitive advantage of Indonesia. Number 4 is the meritocracy. In this case, in order to navigate Indonesia in the turbulence global water, I think we need to have qualified leaders, isn't it? And then number 5, we need to rely on good governance. Because to manage Indonesia, this huge Indonesia, and to make Indonesia as the lighthouse of the world democracy, world development, we need to have good governance and also good corporate governance. And apart from that, we also need to acknowledge a capacity of us to settle our differences peacefully. That's why we need to have a good culture of peace inside the country. And then when it comes to global competition, we also need to have a capacity to think pragmatically, not to walk around the bush, but to try to understand what is the core of the problem. So I think Indonesia needs to have these 7 qualities, education in accordance to, let's say, the Human Development Index, isn't it?
Okay.
Education, science and technology, and then market economy, mastering of market economy, and then culture of peace, meritocracy, good governance. This is the prescribed menu for Indonesian elites and also Indonesian parliamentarians, because we need to end a notion of rivalries inside the political parties, rivalries in the parliament. But we need to have a future of Indonesia which is credible, strong, and then also a peace-loving nation.
Okay, so you suggest that Indonesia is supposed to, the leader is supposed to have a vision as a rising middle power, and also outward-looking, right?
Correct.
But I mean, with this situation over the Southeast Asia and what happened, you already told us many things about the Indo-Pacific and the BRI, the Belt and Road Initiative. Yes. I would like to know, the tension might be happen, right?
Oh yes.
At least from my notes, what you have said in the South China Sea, and then the other one might be happening in Korea Peninsula, and also not to forget the Taiwan Straits, right?
Yes.
Because after what happened between Russia and Ukraine, people now compare Taiwan and China. That might be happened in a recent or maybe in the near future, right? So with this kind of potential of conflict all over the Indo-Pacific, especially those in Southeast Asia and East Asia, do you have any recommendation or comment for ASEAN on how to maintain peace and stability in Indo-Pacific? Because you said why ASEAN is the best right now, because we could maintain the stability.
Correct.
We could maintain all of our members to stay there. So any recommendation for ASEAN to maintain this?
Well, in this case, ASEAN needs to think from outside the box. We need to have creativity. So that's why Indonesia, as the biggest country inside ASEAN, needs to add one more formula for its foreign policy. Earlier on, we have free and active foreign policy. But in this case, we need to have one more keyword called creative. The meaning of creative is our capacity to find the best practices coming from other parts of the world and implement it inside ASEAN and also inside the Indo-Pacific. For example, in the past, if we refer to the diplomatic relations between Indonesia and North Korea, what made us close? Not only the close relationship between our former President Bung Karno and Kim Il-sung, But the capacity of Bung Karno to win the heart of Kim Il-sung through introducing something called a flower diplomacy.
Okay.
By inventing, by making orchid, and he made the name Kim Il-sungya. So this orchid has become the symbol of friendship between Indonesia and the North Korea. That's the one. So in this case, we need to think, for example, with regard to the North and South, the conflict in the North Korean and the South Korean. We need to do something here. On one hand, people all over the world, they show cynicism to North Korean call themselves their leader, the great leader Kim Il-sung. But we need to see the prospect that, for example, ASEAN, we have tried to bring Kim Il-sung to Southeast Asia. For example, in the years 2018, we managed to help organizing a summit between Donald Trump and Kim Il-sung in Singapore. And then also in 2019, we managed to invite two of them again to come to Vietnam. So this is one of the way to produce a more conducive environment. Because when leaders talk, they talk not only at the bilateral level, but regional level and global level. By coming to ASEAN country, we are beginning to see the peaceful side of Kim Il-sung, isn't it? So this is one of the way to engage. And then with regards to the crisis in South China Sea, we have been promoting code of conduct. By having code of conduct, we are trying to make China understand that we do not want to see war. We acknowledge your rise to superpower status, but in order to become a credible superpower status, you need to follow international law. And by keep talking about code of conduct and then rule of engagement with China, China will see that its movements are under regional attention and also under global attention. We help producing, let's say, ASEAN Defense Minister Meeting.
ADMM.
Yes. Then China is there, isn't it? And then we have ADMM Plus, And by having ADMM and ADMM Plus, China will begin to see that ASEAN countries, we are at peace with each other. We do not want to have war. We do not want to produce a coalition against you. But at the same time, let's progress. Let's respect international law. But by doing this, the US also see that in ASEAN countries, we have been promoting a peaceful region through, for example, zone of peace, freedom, and neutrality.
Job fund.
Yes, and also Southeast Asia nuclear weapon-free zone. I think if China understand the core of this ZOP fund and Southeast Asia nuclear weapon-free zone, I think China will understand that there is a limit for China. There is a huge interest of China, but at the same time, China needs to respect international law. And then, we need to become a credible ASEAN, isn't it? If we say no to China, we also have to say no to the US and say no to AUKUS countries and also the Quad countries. So in this case, we are happy to see Quad countries are developing over there, and then AUKUS countries are developing. But when it comes to Southeast Asia, please do not bring your nuclear vessels to this region.
Okay.
Because it will attract
another party to do the same. You mentioned that ASEAN could lead this by their creativity.
Yes.
And it brings us to the so-called ASEAN centrality, right?
Yes, correct.
That's nowadays become something that always said by many of ASEAN leaders. do you think that ASEAN centrality will be achievable in these circumstances of many great powers in the region?
You are right. In order to make ourselves central in the eyes of the great powers, we need to make our ASEAN more relevant there.
Okay.
More relevant to the 10 countries inside ASEAN. So that's why, in order to make ourselves more relevant, among others, we need to increase greater internal trading between us, and also greater internal investment. Because at the moment, countries inside ASEAN, we experience investment more from outside ASEAN than from intra-ASEAN countries. In this case, we need also to make ASEAN more relevant, not only to people at the capital cities, but also to people living in the surrounding areas of ASEAN. So that's why we need to further encourage the greater economic cooperation between the coastal regions of ASEAN. At the moment, we have Sijori, Singapore, Johor Riau. And then we also have Brunei, Indonesia, Malaysia, Philippines, East Asia Grouping Association, something. BIMP,
the growth triangle, right?
Yeah, the growth triangle. We need to make developments more felt by people at the outer islands of ASEAN countries.
Okay.
We also have Indonesia, Malaysia, Thailand growth triangle. So by doing this, we could witness the prosperity not only happening at the big cities inside ASEAN, but also at the coastal regions. There a feeling of ASEAN-ness, feeling that we are part of ASEAN. It could produce a greater credibility. Credibility is something need to be earned, need to be working hard by ASEAN countries. Because once we have an ASEAN community, our ASEAN is not an elitist community any longer. It is a public. It is a community owned by the people, and then supported by the people, and then initiatives should come from the people.
So it's not only regionalism, but regionalization, right? That came bottom up. Okay. It's really interesting to have talks with you today about this Indo-Pacific. However, time also has reached us to end this conversation. But before we end, I will give you like 30 seconds or 1 minute. You mentioned about this ASEAN have to be felt by many people, have to become a regionalization. Do you have any specific suggestion or message to our Asian youngsters about how we can work or make ASEAN works in this circumstance and challenge of Indo-Pacific? Please, Pak Reza.
Well, yes, you're right. We need to make ASEAN more credible. Yeah, credibles meaning the youngsters. Yeah, around 60% of the youngsters. Yeah, they are energetic. And then, in this case, they need to interact more. I would like to see greater associations between ASEAN young professionals.
ASEAN young professionals.
Young professionals. Greater interaction between ASEAN students. And then greater association between ASEAN cities. We have cities in Indonesia. If you ask me, I think more than 500. Yeah. But do we know cities in Cambodia, in Laos, in Myanmar?
Only the capital city, maybe.
Yes, not only the capital cities. We need to have a association of cities. Yeah, they need to learn the best practices from each other, and then association of museums inside ASEAN. Because the ASEAN culture is so rich, and then we need also to learn the best practices from the developments happening inside ASEAN countries to be practiced by other cities inside ASEAN.
Sharing best practices, right?
Correct. Sharing best practices.
Okay. So, guys, ASEAN youngster, you already heard from Pak Reza. You have to develop a more or greater interaction among you, as well as you have to more get in touch. So the people to people interaction or connection will be happen, and we will have the feeling that we are part of the ASEAN. Well, I know there's still a lot of things that pop up on your mind about this discussion, this Indo-Pacific. However, the time has reached us to end this conversation. I do believe there will be a lot of another topics in the Talking ASEAN podcast. However, if I can underline several important things from Pak Reza talks today. First, ASEAN is really important at least for 4 aspects: SDGs, Sustainable Development Goals, maritime cooperation, connectivity, and economic cooperation. And this is what bring many great powers into the region. And because this happened to become a lot of people engage ASEAN, then we have to be creative with our policy so we can get benefits from our interaction with the great powers. And the last but not least, us, Indonesia, one of the biggest states in the region, we should ensure our credibility as middle power in ASEAN by involve, and you, Asian youngster, don't forget to make a greater interaction into ASEAN, so you will have the feeling to become the ASEAN people. Okay, guys? I hope this will benefit you. Pak Reza, thank you very much. I really appreciate.
I'm honored.
I really appreciate. I learned a lot about Indo-Pacific, ASEAN today.
We learn from each other.
I also, the Asian youngster, learned a lot for today. Okay, see you guys. Take care and see you on Talking ASEAN Podcast in the next episode. Bye-bye. Thank you.